The name of the game now is speed. Gusts to 70 miles per hour. It doesn't quit. This is one heck of a historic, record-breaking storm.
I could see all the glows in the sky. It looked like the Blitz or something.
It's my house. I'm in the same boat as everybody else, so it's sort of like a death.
This is almost as bad as 9/11, personally, for me.
The level of devastation at the Jersey Shore is unthinkable.
The force of the water came over so high, it blew out the bricks. A lot of stuff that we really don't want to be around, especially when it's being blown around.
All of Broad Channel right now appears to us to be underwater. This is already by far much worse than Hurricane Irene ever got here.
Our Pix 11 reporters 12 months ago battling the hell and high water of Superstorm Sandy. Homes were washed away, blown to bits or burned to the ground. Entire towns look like they'd been hit by the worst weapon imaginable. Over the next 30 minutes, we're taking a look back at where we've been, where we are today, and the long road to recovery that still lies ahead. Hello, and thanks for joining us for this Pix 11 special Hell and High Water 1 year later. I'm Tamsin Fidel.
I'm Scott Stanford. This week marks 1 year since Superstorm Sandy, one of the deadliest, most destructive, and most expensive storms ever. Hundreds of New Yorkers and New Jerseyans were left with literally nothing but the clothes on their backs. Many aren't all that much better off today. At 12 months since Sandy, our reporters have revisited the hardest hit communities for a look back and a look forward. Sandy killed 117 people in the United States, mostly in New York. It was the second costliest in history, more than $65 billion in damage. The Jersey Shore was ground zero, hit with a 1-2 punch. First the storm and its unbelievable destruction, then months into the recovery, the fire on the boardwalk. We're going to take you to Breezy Point, the flood and the flames, the neighborhood that burned to the ground during the storm, and where they stand today. And to Long Beach on Long Island. We've heard people there tell us that it was as bad for them or worse than 9/11. Today, that community has become a model for the recovery effort. But now we want to begin our coverage on the Jersey Shore. We've talked about them a lot lately, and for all the wrong reasons. Yeah, the recovery effort isn't even close to complete. Life is far from back to normal, and just when it felt like the people who live there were getting close, they were hit with another disaster. Pix 11's Jay Dow was in Seaside Heights during the storm and for the days that followed. Right now, Jay takes you back to where he was when the ocean was doing its worst to the Jersey Shore.
It was the evening of Monday, October 29th, 2012. And the New Jersey Shore, as seen in video recorded by Monmouth Beach resident Jonathan Jockey, was simply not prepared for the force of Hurricane Sandy. One wrong move, and anything or anyone in its path, including our Pix 11 news crew, did not stand a chance.
Just a few minutes ago, the force of the water came over so high, it blew out the bricks that are lining the boardwalk wall, and you can see those bricks here. If we would have been standing here just a few minutes, pummeled us, and they're all over this street here in front of Pier Village, this new retail development here in Long Branch. Needless to say, it was reason enough for us to pack up and get out of there.
Sunrise that very next morning revealed the full extent of the damage. From the air, a tour of several shore communities, including Seaside Heights, looked more like a war zone.
There are homes in the middle of Route 35, off of their foundations. The amusement pier at Seaside Park, the Bogfoom and the roller coaster in the ocean. No, I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Residents spent their days and nights recovering what was found and rebuilding what was lost. But these days,
we're here. We're here.
Bartender JoJo Hughes, who works at the Beachcomber Bar and Grill in Seaside Heights, is spreading the only news that people want to hear.
A couple prayers have been answered here.
The Jersey Shore is still open for business.
It's nerve-wracking, but I know, I have that feeling it's going to be up and running, and you know what? Maybe just a little bit better.
And while progress is visible, it's also slow going. Those boardwalk paver bricks that almost crushed this reporter and our Pix 11 crew have since been replaced. But JoJo's boss at the Beachcomber, Mike Carbone, says the crowds are still missing.
We lost all of our winter business because of the storm, and then the summer was very weak because we didn't have a lot. We only had day business. We didn't have a lot of night business because of the storm. People didn't move back into their homes, and then as soon as the summer was over, we got hit by a fire.
That's right, a fire, a big one.
Redispatch my company for a confirmed fire at the boardwalk.
The blaze started in a frozen custard shop at the end of the boardwalk and quickly spread north thanks to strong winds, incinerating one business after another. It was a disaster, and Carbone could only look on helplessly as the fire approached his bar with disturbing speed and intensity. When the smoke cleared, his bar was still standing, the result of lucky timing.
This business here was just recently updated with all the brand new codes. It has a new sprinkler system. We had all the double 5/8 sheetrock, so it was brought up to current standards so it could withstand a fire.
You're about ready to teach an entrepreneurial destruction recovery course now.
Well, it says on the door, it says the Beachcomber's open all year long, no matter what. No matter what, no matter what, we're here.
You can say that now.
Yes.
Jersey Strong. It's a term that symbolizes this area's ongoing struggle to rebound, not just from Hurricane Sandy, but this fall's fire, which took out several blocks of boardwalk. It's a 1-2 punch that, as you can see, many businesses simply did not survive. But family-run operations like the Beachcomber Bar and Grill here in Seaside Heights have provided some much-needed inspiration to anyone who doubts this area's ability to bounce back. 1 year after Sandy, construction crews have cleaned up much of the mess. Homes have been renovated or rebuilt, and those charred lots in Seaside will eventually make way for a new boardwalk with new businesses. What will not be replaced?
It's an oasis, yeah? And then you look out there right now and you get the boat passing through. How beautiful.
Is the sense of hope and optimism that kept New Jersey Shore natives like JoJo Hughes from throwing in the towel, even in their darkest hours.
I'm telling you, there's your guardian angel up there, and every day I pray, and I'm one of those people that's never gonna say, I don't wanna go to work today.
In Seaside Heights, New Jersey, Jay Dow, Pix 11 News.
Boy, I'll tell you what, you watch that video and it takes you back to that day. And I'll never forget in my neighborhood in northern New Jersey, just driving around when the storm started to kick in and immediately trees started falling on cars and I'm watching neighbors' cars get crushed and the power starts going out. And I remember driving around and thinking, boy, this place looks like a war zone. But then when you turned on the television and you saw what was going on at the shore and in Queens, it was a whole nother level of devastation. I remember saying, man, oh man, we're lucky compared to what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely. When you say the word community, it is synonymous with the Jersey Shore and what they've been through. And it's 12 months. And if you look at the rebuilding and what really needed to take place out there, I remember sitting in the studio watching, every half hour new video rolling in of one area devastated after another and what they've done to really rebuild that area to get it back to where it is, and there's so much more to go. We're just getting started really with our look back at the year since Superstorm Sandy left the scars on New York and New Jersey.
And when we come back, Pix 11's Arthur Sheehan goes back to the hardest hit part of Queens. 1 year ago, Broad Channel was underwater. Breezy Point was on fire.
Plus, it's a city by the sea that looked like it had been washed away. Now, 12 months later, we go back to Long Beach, a community that mostly looks like it had never even heard of Sandy.
And a little bit later on, like Band-Aids on a shotgun wound, a lack of respect for the ocean could mean the city won't be ready for the next storm. We're talking to an engineer about what it's going to take to get New York truly prepared for another Sandy. You're watching a Pix 11 News special, Hell and High Water, 1 year later. Well, welcome back to this Pix 11 News special, Hurricane Sandy, Hell and High Water, 1 year later. I'm Scott Stanford.
And I'm Tamsa Vidal. We're in Breezy Point, Queens right now. This is an area that left us with one of those tragically iconic images of the superstorm. You can see it right here behind me. Everyone has moments and memories of the storm, plenty of symbols of devastation like the roller coaster in the ocean, the water blasting over the seawall in Battery Park City, the rush of floodwater on Staten Island. And then, of course, there was Breezy Point. For the people here, those images are forever burned in their minds.
You know, that word burned is really apropos because, well, this is the community that actually caught fire right smack in the middle of that hurricane. And, you know, it's really the last thing you'd actually expect to happen at the height of a once-in-a-lifetime storm. I mean, with all the flooding and the rain that came down, I mean, the folks here in Breezy Point, really, last thing you ever expected to happen, with certainly devastating outcomes.
One fire sparked when rising water flooded an electrical system out here. It sent this whole neighborhood up in flames. In all, 122 homes were destroyed.
Well, now this place still remains basically like a graveyard. I mean, this is the burn zone, the still vacant lots that used to be a neighborhood full of houses. And now, 365 days after Superstorm Sandy, well, the building process is very slow. Some folks would tell you it's even non-existent.
Pix 11's Arthur Sheehan was here in October of last year when the water started to rise. Now he's taking a look at the rebuilding process 1 year later, how far these storm victims have come and how many miles they still have to go.
And you see how strong that current's getting. Somebody's actually holding our cameraman Kenton up right now.
In the year that's gone by, we have returned to Breezy Point several times, sometimes on the weekend, on our own, just to see it, connected in an undescribable way. And this is what we see when we come. Even after a year, precious little progress has been made. We came across Mary Beth Stein and her husband Eddie cycling by with their 2 children this weekend.
It's almost hard to believe it's been a year. So many family and close friends whose houses were burned down, and those are the people that our hearts go out to.
In fact, only one house stands out as the face of progress here, and as it turns out, it's not quite the example residents would hope for.
When that green building went up here, we thought perhaps the tides had changed out here in Breezy Point and progress was going to come. But in the months that followed, it continued to look like this. As it turns out, that house had gotten permits for a planned renovation before Sandy hit. For everybody else out here, getting a permit has been a painfully long process. You would think with all the tension and all the motivation to make sure that there was rebuilding, that somebody would have made sure that that process
went a little smoother. Yeah, exactly. That's the frustration that a lot of the people are feeling.
Even homes on the edge that survived bear the scars. While officials speak of progress and funding and mobilizing, just the greenhouse stands here, along with one other being built. How that one got through the permit maze, we don't know, though that home belongs to a congressman. Nonetheless, even as a work in progress, even with the slower than steady rebuilding, the most encouraging sign of momentum here comes from people like Seamus, Francis, and Mary Bennett.
Things that I thought wasn't going to happen is happening. So as sad as it is, you know, we're trying to go forward with a positive attitude and just hope that the rest of our neighbors get back sooner than later.
And having tread this territory for this first anniversary of Sandy, it occurs to us that unyielding optimism is something we're likely to remember from this. In Breezy Point, Arthur Chien, Pix 11 News.
Boy, I'll tell you what, it is so obvious that life here in this community is never going to be the same unless you've actually experienced this chapter of Sandy and watched your neighbor's home burn down. You've watched your home burn down. We will never know what this is like, and there's still so much more to do.
Yeah, but the good news is there are some other neighborhoods that are well on their way to recovery and normalcy. A year ago, some Long Island communities looked like they had literally been blasted right off the map. But the city of Long Beach in particular is back, and it's back in a big way. Pix 11's Narmeen Chaudhary is taking a look at the rebuilding efforts there 1 year after they walked through hell and high water.
Yeah, that's coming up next.
Welcome back to this Pix 11 News special. Hurricane Sandy, hell and high water 1 year later. I'm Tamsin Fidel.
I'm Scott Stanford. Now, a year ago, it seemed like Long Beach was hit by the most unimaginable weapon ever. I mean, this place was a mess. But I'll tell you what, as you can see, a year later, it seems like this 3.5 mile long city by the sea almost dodged the storm, right? I mean, it looks beautiful here.
Yeah, I got to tell you, though, but not even close. I mean, this was just a mess. I remember specifically last year, one man said that to him it was worse than 9/11. There were piles everywhere. There were piles of cars, piles of sand, piles of boardwalk. But Long Beach is back in a big way, and you can see for yourself the boardwalk has been rebuilt.
Well, I'll tell you what, it really is a testament to how far this community has come back in such a short period of time. Pix 11's Narmeen Chaudhary was here after the storm, and she's been tracking the progress of the folks here in Long Beach. And, well, Normeen's got a closer look at just how Long Beach has come back to life.
It is the middle of the week, and yet the 2.5-mile stretch of boardwalk in Long Beach is bustling with walkers, joggers, cyclists, and strollers. Within its business district, many shops and restaurants are open for business. Residents with smiles on their faces, seemingly always welcoming. By nearly all appearances, it is difficult to fathom the utter devastation and loss suffered by this small beachfront community just about 1 year ago.
The city of Long Beach has declared a mandatory evacuation.
For those who made the decision to stay and weather the storm, it is almost impossible to forget vivid details, sights, and sounds of Sandy as she grew in strength.
What I remember is laying in our master bedroom that looks over the front of the house, laying in the master bed, watching the water go down the street and watching bits and pieces of the Alegria Hotel float by. The wind picked up and things started banging, and you could hear things crashing and hear things falling. And about that time, I gathered up the dog and our go bags and went up to the 3rd floor.
When the wind shifted onshore and the high tide rose and the ocean met the bay, that's when all forces just came through this town.
Amateur video captures Sandy's wrath. Time-elapsed images illustrate a gradual buildup and then the havoc.
You know, we thought we were safe, but, you know, there was no escaping. And, like, you know, my parents' house completely ruined. You know, my parents, they had 8 feet on the 1st floor. They lived on a 1-story house. They jumped out of the window onto our jet skis.
When all was said and done, very few managed to escape the brutality of Sandy. The popular boardwalk gone. A 14-feet section of it with the railing still attached was even found 6 blocks away. It seemed as though rebuilding and bouncing back would be impossible. And yet look at Long Beach today. On its feet, not fully, but ask practically anyone, and they believe they are stronger than ever before. To start, Scott Mendel, president of the Long Beach City Council, told us the newly built boardwalk is state-of-the-art and made to last. Denser than the original wood, so much so it will not float. It won't require the same maintenance as the old boardwalk. Instead, will not need repair for another 30 to 40 years. The city had the painstaking process of having to sift and sort and test through 160,000 cubic yards of sand to help the beach come back to life. But you know, the boardwalk area is really just one element of Long Beach's story. 90% of the residents who live here had to evacuate after Sandy. Today, about 15% remain displaced. The sound of construction remains constant in the air. Some stretches of neighborhoods like Pennsylvania Avenue still struggling to get back on its feet. The landscape has even changed. If you want to rebuild here, raised homes, now an apparent reality. And yes, there are residents still living in other towns, hotels, and trailers right in front of their ravaged homes. But with signs of community support like this one, it is the resiliency of Long Beach's residents you simply can't ignore. Rena Benet is just one of those very people. She shows us her empty plot of land where her single-floor ranch once stood. Her mail continues to come to this address as she continues to grapple with what seems like endless red tape thrown in her direction by insurance companies. Life is far from normal, but she is not giving up.
I'm not out of steam because the stakes are too high, but we're all very drained emotionally and physically.
Cliff Skudnick is a third-generation surfer. He lost everything from his home to his surfing business that he ran right from the beach under the boardwalk. The ocean washed it all away.
It was definitely emotional. I was crying, you know, standing down here and looking at the jetties fully exposed. There was basically no sand on this beach.
Skudnick estimates his losses to have surpassed $100,000, but he's back. Not the way he would ideally like, but still back. Operating out of a trailer for the time being, his plans even include expanding his business and making it better. His selfless spirit even pulled together his resources from a worldwide surfing community to help his hometown. He sold relief shirts in 36 different states, 9 different countries, and he raised $100,000 for Long Beach community centers.
I would have to say we have recovered in some areas, but not everybody's home. You know, I always remember that because I still have family, friends people that I love that are still struggling to this day. And so it's going to take years to recover.
The sounds of rebuilding are not expected to go away anytime soon.
Long Beach is coming back.
For some, it's provided a comfort that nothing, not even Mother Nature, can break this community.
I wasn't fearful of Sandy. I think it's the reality of living here. I think you make that choice no matter where you live.
If anything, Sandy has made this community safer, stronger, preparing Long Beach for whatever Mother Nature may throw their way. In Long Beach, Narmeen Chaudhry, Pix 11 News.
As always, it's amazing and so good to see such positive stories, but everywhere we go out here, it's still hard to imagine when you have a beautiful day like this, what took place 1 year ago when Sandy hit. Everyone, though, shares one same thought. They're hoping that this was a once-in-a-lifetime storm.
But what if it's not? Someday, and there will be someday when another gigantic storm hits. When we come back, we're going to talk about the future.
We're also going to be talking to an engineer about the flood zones and rebuilding our communities, including New York City, so that they're bigger, better, and safer than ever before.
That's coming up on our Pix 11 News special. Hurricane Sandy, hell and high water 1 year later.
One year ago, Mr. G was working around the clock in the Weather Center. He sat down with an engineer to talk about what's being done to keep you safe.
Where are we today, right now, if it happened?
Where we are is a lot farther along in knowing where our weaknesses are, and I think we have some good short-term planning if we had the right warning to get people out of harm's way if they were willing to move. What we really haven't learned is how to create a way as a region or as a country yet. I think we're working on it. But how do we get together and put the resources behind doing this? The Netherlands, not only is the mandate of their country, they guarantee every citizen the kind of safety you're talking about. The United States is a much more complex political place. We don't have those guarantees yet. Maybe we should have those guarantees. People used to live by the beach, not permanently. They lived there in certain seasons. And what I think is, why have we forgotten the lessons of history when people used to be closer to the weather? We need to make the risk clear to people. I think that as much as you can blame individual people, I think we're not doing a good job in actually explaining risks.
You know, they say it was a once-in-a-lifetime event, but this is going to happen again, isn't it?
Well, and it will. And you know what's really interesting about this? Sandy was a storm that came in from the wrong side. Okay, it was never seen by the computers, but the computer handled it very well. Flooding, computers handle that very well. So we can track a storm, we can nail a storm, we can tell you how much flooding there'll be, but we have to match that science with the will to counter the force of water. And it seems to me, on a 1 to 10 scale, we're approaching a 2.
And the two scariest words, next time.
And there will be.
Yep. All right, G.
Let's hope you're wrong, G.
Thank you.
Man.
All right, that is going to do it for us tonight. Tuesday, October 29th is the 1-year anniversary of Superstorm Sandy.
Yeah, on Tuesday, we're going to bring you complete coverage morning to night with still standing after Sandy.
Good night, everyone.